All right, welcome back to the Powers on Sports podcast. We have hit the Stanley Cup Finals here in the NHL, and down here in Tampa Bay, we are going for the three-peat. Lightning Avalanche is your Stanley Cup Final, and no better person to talk to all things Lightning Avs. We're going to talk a little Bucks. We're going to talk a little FSU. Might even talk a little Live Golf Tour as well. One JP Peterson, host of the JP Peterson Show, Monday through Fridays, 10 to 12 on the live stream. The fan stream app, YouTube, Facebook, all that stuff. So welcome back, JP.
Jason, how you doing, buddy? Good to be back with you.
I also forgot to mention John is also the host of all the in-game action. He's the host of Lightning Hockey Night Live inside Amalie Arena. So he has been there.
That's right.
Home game.
That's right.
First off, give the audience a little perspective if they weren't in the building the other night. Game 6. Rangers, Lightning, just the atmosphere of in the building and inside and in around Thunder Alley.
Man, I tell you what, it was amazing. And I've always wondered what it's like to be like, a rock star on stage and have 20,000 people like hanging on your every note and every word. Well, I can't really hear the crowd in my studio, but I heard the crowd the other night, and I was firing them up right before the game. They were getting loud, and I was like, damn, this is really cool. And you just knew that the crowd was going to be into it, and they were. I think the Lightning fed off the crowd, and it was just a great atmosphere. I've been covering a lot of these major sports for a long time, and I've always been, a guy that thought a big college football matchup is as good as it gets. A Florida State game back in the 90s, yep, or a Florida State game, and, a night game is just as good as it gets. But I think playoff hockey in Amalie Arena is about as good as it gets for a spectator sport. It's just phenomenal.
Yeah, people around the country kind of think Tampa's not a hockey city and all because of the sunshine, but it's so
about Mike Wilbon.
That. Huh?
You're talking about Mike Wilbon, Mr. SEC
yes.
hockey team? I mean, what a dork.
I know. We are definitely top 5 in the league as far as atmosphere in a big game setting inside of Amalie Arena.
That had to be one of the most ignorant comments that has ever come out of his mouth, and that's saying something. It was just, think about what this franchise has done and what they are currently doing. It's beyond compare, really. In the past 50 years, I think there's only 3 other teams in sports that have done what the Lightning have done in terms of going to 3 straight finals, possibly winning 3 straight championships in a row. In the salary cap eras, it's almost impossible to do. And what they've been able to do consistently, 6 conference finals in the past 8 years, that's unheard of. I mean, there's so many things that this Lightning team is doing. They have the best winning percentage in NHL playoff history on the road and overall. I could go on and on with the list of accomplishments that nobody else in hockey or in sports has done for the last 50 years. It's incredible. And an unbelievable thing about it is this core is going to be together for another 4 or 5 years. And Vasilevsky's not going anywhere. I can tell you that. He's 27 and he's already, you see the numbers on his last 8 series clinchers.
2 goals.
219 saves out of 221 shots.
2 goals.
That's a 991 save percentage. That's ridiculous. And a 0.25 goals against. I mean, if you put the Lightning up against an AHL team for 8 games, I don't think they could achieve those numbers. And we're talking about in game clinching situations where the other team is at their most desperate. And these are the best teams in hockey. I mean, those numbers are off the freaking charts. And this team just continues to just persevere. And the template that they've come up with to win playoff hockey games is something that I don't think anybody's come up with in this league. And the way this team executes it with their talent, their dedication, their sheer will, their courage is really incomparable in sports.
And we're going to talk a little bit about the styles of play because the Lightning can win anyway. They can win up and down. They can grit it out and grind it out. So that's the beauty, I think, of this team is they can kind of play whatever way you want to play. And for whatever reason, the defense in the playoffs really locks it down. I mean, it's not all Vasilevsky. He's a big part of it, but the guys play so much more disciplined, so much more under control and with their skill. It's just incredible to watch. And because, you watch a regular season game, in the middle of February, they might
Oh,
lose 7-3. It's just one of those situations. But the focus and the coaching, I think Cooper's a huge part of that. The way he just is a calming force. He doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. I think it's a real credit to him and his coaching staff.
Yeah, and their versatility, it's kind of personified in the way that they've won each round here. In Toronto, it was a bit of more of a high scoring series, but when they needed to win in game 6 and 7, they locked it down. You know, what they did to the Panthers, the highest scoring team since 1996 in the Hockey, to sweep them out and hold them to 3 goals in 4 games. Again, that's just crazy. But I think, they can go up and down if they have to, but I think they've come up with this template now in the playoffs where they take away the best line.
Yep.
With Cirelli and Killorn have been doing it. It was the third line last year that kind of did that. And now Cooper's got these teams matched up. And now they got Braden Point coming back, who's the best two-way forward. And that's going to make them markedly better as a team. And they're already, good enough to get to the Stanley Cup Finals. So, again, I love the way this is setting up against the Avs. The Avs have been off for 9 days.
Yep.
You saw what that did to the Lightning in the first 2 games against the Rangers. I think it's going to be a factor in the first 2 games. The Lightning can steal 1. Obviously, that's what you came there for. If they can get 2, well, then, just remarkable. And I think that, and they have 4 nights off to rest themselves after coming off a series. So I don't think they get rusty in that time frame. So I think it all sets up really, really well. I talked to Brian Bradley today on my show about, the altitude, and he said it's definitely a factor, no question, but they'll have lots of oxygen on the bench. They'll probably take shorter shifts, but it will definitely have an effect on them. So I think it's setting up really well for them.
Talk about Braden Point. For those of you that don't know the Lightning inside and out like we do, Braden Point, the last 2 years in the playoffs, their leading scorer.
Yeah.
I mean, more than Kucherov, more than Stamkos. This guy led the league both playoff runs in scoring. He's been out since the Florida series. Early in that
Toronto, Toronto series. Last game of the Toronto series, the beginning of the Florida series.
Yeah,
Listen, it not only was he their leading scorer, but clutch scorer. Overtime goals, late goals, and not only that, he was also playing terrific defense. He's taken away one of the best players on the other side. So you're getting, again, you're getting one of the top 5 players in the league, 200-foot players, and that's, especially in the playoffs, that's just so valuable. And basically, just think about it. You're taking out Riley Nash and putting in Braden Point. That's no offense to Mr. Nash, but that's a huge freaking upgrade. So, I expect him. We're still not sure if he plays game 1. I think he's going to play game 1. Today, he was taking line rushes, I think, with the third line with Nick Paul and Hagel. So he may, imagine Braden Point being your third center.
Right.
On your third line. So, I think you're going to see the Lightning get immeasurably better.
And that's what else people don't realize is you plug him in, whether it's a second or third line, it pushes that one more guy down to even a more depth. You create more depth with the third and the fourth line, who Maroon and those guys have been effective at times, have scored some big goals. It just makes the depth of the roster that much more. And not that Nash isn't a good player, but you said the huge upgrade with Braden Point is going to be. And if things aren't going great, Cooper then has the flexibility to move the lines around a little bit better if you need to do that at some point during the series.
Absolutely. It just gives them another tool in the toolbox. And, and the fact that this team has played so well together, I'm a little shocked that Vegas has them as the underdog.
Huge.
But that's Vegas. They know they want the public money to come in on the Avs.
Yeah.
So they're going to make the Lightning the underdogs. And, because the public likes to bet the favorites. I just, and I think there's a feeling around here that the Avs are just that much better than the Lightning. I don't see it. Playoffs is so much about goaltending, and Darcy Kemper's been in and out. He's got an eye injury. They gave up 6, 5, 2 in the 4 games against Edmonton. That's a lot of goals to give up. The Lightning aren't giving up 5, 6, 7 goals in a game. They're just not going to do it. Vasi's locked in.
Yeah.
So I really like the Lightning in 6 again. I called the Lightning in 6 against the Rangers. It looked bleak early, but they came back and made me right.
The Lightning are trying to be the first team in all of professional sports to win 3 in a row since the Lakers in the early 2000s. So 20 years hasn't a franchise in any of the big professional sports won 3 in a row. You think that's going to be any additional pressure on the Lightning? You think they're just so locked in right now, it's not going to matter?
No, that's honestly, that's the motivating force. I mean, these guys talked about this early on this season, and Cooper talked to them as well and challenged them. He said, you guys, you win 1 cup, it's amazing. You win 2 cups, you're special.
Yep.
You win 3 cups, you're historic.
Legendary.
You are truly historic. And I think this is already a dynasty. I think they've already qualified for that, making 3 finals in a row and 4 finals in the past 7 years, 6 years, 6 Eastern Conference finals in 8 years. That right there is a dynasty. I don't care what anybody says. They've already achieved that in my mind. But win 3 in a row, they know how special that is. It's super, super special across all of sports, like you said. And that's been their motivating force. I mean, how do you find, motivation? How do you stay hungry? Do you want to be great? Do you want to be incredible back to back, or do you want to be historic? Right. And that's what they're chasing. And they're playing like it. They're playing like they want to be known as one of the greatest. And I think if they win 3 in a row, and it's salary cap era, I think that you put them in with the Islanders and the Canadians. Those are the 2 teams that they most mirror in terms of consecutive playoff wins. So I think they're in the conversation for the greatest team of all time. And that's when you're talking about GOAT status, that this is what they're chasing, and they know it.
And the funny thing is, people don't realize this. 3 years ago, if they don't beat Columbus in the first round 3 years ago, Cooper's probably fired. The way they had the misery they had the year before when they got swept, they won a 5 overtime game in that first game against Columbus. That might have been the catalyst to this entire run.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think they would have beat Columbus that year anyway, but you don't want to play with fire and give them more gas. And anytime you lose a 3 overtime, 5 overtime game in a playoff series, it's hard to come back from that. I totally agree with you. And it just seems to be when their backs are against the wall is when they play their best hockey. It's amazing.
All right, let's get to the Avalanche a little bit. You got the Avalanche speed. They are high flyers. Makar, McKinnon, they got Lehkonen. They got a lot of speed, both forwards and the defensemen, versus kind of, to me, the grit of the Lightning. I don't think the Lightning are as fast as they are, as skilled, but maybe not the foot speed. What do you think a couple keys in this series are as far as keeping McKinnon and Makar under control a little bit, staying out of the penalty box?
Yeah, that's important. And you saw they did a great job of that in the past three games against the Rangers. So they know how to play disciplined hockey. But I just, I go back to Toronto was a better offensive team than the Avs.
Yeah.
Florida was a better offensive team than the Avs. The Avs are a better defensive team than those two. I think they're a better overall team. But when you look at just the numbers, I think the East was so much better than the West this year. I think there's a marked, and you look at, Colorado, and it's not to disparage them, but they've played against, Mike Smith, a backup goalie, very much like the Rangers. They're winning with their offense.
Yep.
And playing against some bad defensive teams. That's
St. Louis had a backup goalie. St. Louis had a backup goalie.
Right. So, I mean, this is kind of the same thing the Rangers did. They were living on Shesterkin and playing against backup goalies. Now here come the Lightning with the best goalie in the game. And it's going to frustrate the Avs. It's going to frustrate them a lot. They're not going to be able to score 9 goals a game.
Yep.
They'll be lucky to get 2 a game.
Yep.
And I think it's going to frustrate them a lot. I don't care how fast they are. They're no faster than the Panthers. They're no faster than Toronto. The Lightning know how to lock these teams down.
No, you're right. No, great point. So I think you made a great point. I think the game 1 and game 2 is a very gettable game for the Lightning with the long break that the Avalanche have been 8 or 9 days off. That's the game to get them. The Lightning have had 3 or 4 days. Like you said, not a rust issue. Again, you worry about the altitude, that first game with the altitude, but I think after a period, they'll get their legs under them. So you like the Lightning in 6. I do too. They'll be there hopefully to hoist up number 3 up in the building. Tell me how cool is it to be in that building when they've hoisted that trophy?
Last year was amazing. It was so fun. And then, the after party was incredible. We had an after party with all the employees. Jeffrey Vinik brought out all the food and open bar, big tubs of beer for everybody. And that was the employee party. And after the players got kind of done with their party, Cooper and a bunch of the players went up to the employee party where we were. And, everybody drank out of the cup and took pictures with the cup. It was I mean, we went to like 6 o'clock in the morning. It was crazy. So, I mean,
that's a
and of
normal
course,
Tuesday night for JP. That's a Tuesday night for JP.
And then, of course, we had the boat parade and dancing in the rain.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm all down for all that.
I hear you.
Put me down for a whole another heap of that. Just good stuff.
I hear it. Great analysis. All right, listen to the Powers on Sports podcast with JP Peterson, host of the JP Peterson Show, Monday through Friday, 10 to 12 on FanStream Sports. Let's transition to the Buccaneers. I want to ask you a Bucs question. Mini camp just wrapped up for the Bucs. Most of the mini camps in the NFL are happening last week and this week. What is the one thing that you think Todd Bowles' demeanor is going to be different than Bruce Arians? Just kind of you think everything's going to be the same, or how do you think the structure of operational things with the franchise is going to go with Todd Bowles at the helm?
Yeah, I think everybody's asking that question. What's different? What's different about Todd Bowles? And I think there are some small differences, but the vast majority of everything is going to be the same. And that's the big key here. I mean, you look at a lot of other teams, the Saints, yeah, they elevated their defensive coordinator, but they've got a lot of different folks on their coaching staff. And don't forget, Sean Payton was much more involved than Bruce Arians. Sean Payton was calling the plays, developing all the game plans.
Yep.
It's almost status quo for the Buccaneers. And that's what wins in this league. Consistency, being able to come back year after year with the same guys, the same offense, the same coaches, the same coordinators. That is such a huge part of winning in the NFL because details win.
Yes.
And when your team is in the process of tweaking details instead of learning entire processes, I mean, it's a huge difference. That's really, I mean, it's the reason that Belichick and Brady were so successful for so long is that continuity. And so I think the overwhelming answer to that question is not much. It's consistency. And that's one of the reasons that Arians felt so comfortable handing it over to Todd Bowles. I mean, nothing really changes. I mean, with the fact that your head coach drinks a lot, that your liquor tab will be less, around $1. This cigar tab will be less. They'll save money in those areas. The press conferences might not be as candid and funny.
Yeah.
But that's, actually Todd Bowles is finding his voice a little bit. He's like this very dry, sarcastic kind of guy. So he's got his own type of humor, and I really, really like it. He's such a likable man. But to his players, he's very demanding.
Yep.
They love playing for Todd Bowles. I think the players are saying the practices are pretty much the same. So, I mean, there's not a whole lot of change, and that should be what, is the main narrative here as far as a coaching change is. There's not much change, and that's good.
I will be interested to see how Bowles handles the in-game stuff, going for it on fourth down, that kind of stuff. Arians was very, very aggressive in those areas.
Was he? But
Bowles had
that's not entirely true. The risk it, no biscuit kind of goes for his style of offense. But in terms of going for it on fourth down and being aggressive in that time, he compared to some of the other coaches in his league, he really wasn't. And I think the main thing we'll see different between the styles of play is I think there's going to be a more emphasis on the run game and the offense.
Yeah.
I think Todd, being a defensive coach, knows one of the biggest things that an offense can do is possess the football and keep his defense fresh and off the field. So I don't think Brady is going to lead the league in attempts. I think there's going to be a much bigger emphasis on the run game. And I think that'll help this team. I really do. I think it'll keep the pressure off of Brady from getting hit as much instead of throwing it 45 times a game. 35 is plenty.
Yep.
So I think in terms of philosophy, now whether he goes for it more on fourth down, I don't know. And of course, Bruce will be there and have some input on that. I don't know if he'll have in-game input, but he might. But I think for the most part, the biggest difference you're going to see just in terms of coaching style is the run game.
I agree. No, I agree with that. All right, let's transition to Florida State. Your wheelhouse. You were in that market a long time. Over the weekends, kind of didn't lay low in the news. You didn't hear a whole lot about it. Mike Martin Jr., the son of the legendary coach Mike Martin, the baseball coach, was let go at Florida State. He followed his dad. He was there, I think, 3 years. I know Coach Martin, the dad, probably very well.
I know both. Yeah.
Yep. Just your thoughts of the decision that went into letting Mike Martin Jr. go.
Yeah, I've known both of them for so long, back when I was working there in the late 80s and early 90s, and kind of kept in touch with Coach Martin and, Meat, as we like to call him, Junior. He took over and did a nice job recruiting and got him to number one in the nation, but he wasn't able to have a lot of postseason success. And that's how you're going to be judged in college baseball. Regular season, it is what it is. It's how do you do in the postseason? And they did not do very well. And I think this new athletic director, Alford, is putting his stamp on the program. This is going to be kind of his first major hire,
right,
so to speak. So, I think he wants to do a national search and get a big name and bring somebody in. I saw my Florida State brethren sometime are completely, pie in the sky fanatical. And they're like, hey, maybe we can get Kevin Cash to come home. I'm like,
what?
Yeah, that ain't happening. He's not coming home to manage at Dick Howser Stadium. I got news for you. So it's not going to be, but there's Link Jarrett,
right,
at Notre Dame, who just knocked off Tennessee.
Yeah.
Would he want to come back to FSU? Obviously, a lot better players down here, although he's done a hell of a job at Notre Dame.
Yeah.
There, Doug Mankiewicz's name has been thrown out. A lot of ex-Seminoles. So it'll be interesting where they go. But I think he's looking for a big name, a familiar name, somebody that has a track record of success, because it's going to be his first major hire. But I think it's good. It signals that this maybe the nepotistic ways of Florida State or something of the past, and we're going to be a little bit more serious about making things happen.
And like we all know, it's always, you don't want to be the guy following the legend. You want to be the second guy following the legend, and maybe that's something that'll open up the cash register at Florida, and maybe they're willing to pay somebody to come in, because it's going to be baseball is getting expensive at the college level.
Well, they need to. I tell you what they need to do. They need to upgrade Dick Howser Stadium. It was once the jewel of all college baseball. It has fallen very far behind as far as some of these other. So they put a lot of money into, the women's sports facilities, which is fantastic. It's great. But they need to start paying attention to some of the other, that bring some of the revenue sports that bring the money in.
No, you're right. All right. Last thing, I'll get you out of here. Last week, I saw you hosted the Sports Club banquet here in Tampa.
Yes.
Your buddy and my buddy, Brad Johnson, inducted, Gail Stearns, and some others. Just talk about again, I know you know Brad pretty well, and I know Gene Deckerhoff was there. Just talk about that honor of doing that event. And my father was in the Sports Club for many, many years. So just talk about that event a little bit and those guys.
That was a great privilege of mine. One of the highlights of my career, frankly, because I've been able to do the Sports Club banquet a couple of years, 3 years now, but this was one where I really knew almost everybody going in on a personal level. Jose Fernandez at USF done a phenomenal job with the women's program. They're a great dude. And of course, Brad Johnson, I've known, since I was whooping his ass at racquetball when he was in school many years ago. He's just the best. Big Bad Brad is the best. Awesome. I'm following him on Instagram, by the way, the trick shot artist, Big Bad Brad. You're missing out. So it was fun to be able to welcome him to the stage, and my co-anchor, Gail Stearns, for many years, to welcome her to the stage. Darren Pupa, who I see all the time at the Lightning games, was inducted as well. Am I forgetting anybody? I hope not. What a night. And just the Glazer family as well was recognized as a Lifetime Achievement Award. Very, very special night for myself. Oh, and Monty Kiffin, the great Monty Kiffin, he went out and did the Tampa 2 cheer, and oh gosh, he was just one of a kind. What a night that was, man. It was fantastic.
Cool. That's awesome. All right, get you out of here. Tell everybody where they can find you online and social media platforms.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at FanstreamJP. FanstreamSports.com is our website, or the JPPetersonShow.com. You can go there, same landing page. We're on 10 to 12 every Monday through Friday. We live stream it on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So please subscribe. Also subscribe to the podcast on Apple and Spotify. And we do have our own app, FanStream Sports, all one word. Download it and just tap the app. The show will come up anytime. We do 2 hours of Tampa Bay centric every day. We have the biggest guests, 2 hours of local sports talk, and very few commercials. No 8-minute stops like our friends on the radio. 2-3 minute commercials, and we're good to go. So check it out.
Yeah, and if you're anywhere in and around Amalie Arena, you'll see JP hyping up the crowd between periods and pregame and all that stuff. He does this great job with the Lightning Hockey Night Live there in Amalie, and go win a 3rd ring, my brother.
You got it, brother. Always fun to be on with you, Jason. Great show, man. Really appreciate it. Do a great job.
Appreciate it, JP. We will be right back on the Powers on Sports podcast.